Good evening, everyone. I'm Duane Whitmer. It's a day of the week, and this is our weekly Whitmer. This week, we're going to talk about traffic cameras in New York State. It's kind of a controversial topic. They've been around for 6, 8 months. We're going to talk about the background. We're going to talk about what's happening to them. We're going to talk about what's occurred, and we're going to talk about the future and what we got going on with that. So before I begin, I'll keep these around 15 minutes, so I got to set my timer. And this week we're going to discuss traffic cameras in New York State. So over the last few years, New York State has realized that there's a shortage of employees. There's an employee crisis in the police departments. And so to combat that, they've given massive raises to officers. But another thing they've started pushing for is increased surveillance technologies. It's easy for one officer to stare at 20 cameras than to actually have foot patrol or 20 officers on a beat, if you will. So as you have a decrease in officer employment, you have an increase in need to surveil the population. And so you've seen a growth in cameras and stuff. And you've also have a great kind of matrix collision where you have the government wants to pretend to do something under the guise of safety, but they also want to raise money. And so you want to dupe the average normie person thinking it's for safety and really raise money. So you have a great situation where the opportunity, just meshes very well. So it all started, at least here in Western New York, it started in the city of Buffalo. They put cameras in the city of Buffalo school district. And it turned out to be a pretty big mess because there was public outrage. People were really disappointed in that. And I'm going to share a news article that I'll put this in the comments. It actually talks about this. But essentially, here's the news article. I'm going to put this right in the comments for you guys. Buffalo got sued pretty heavily, and right here, the first sentence in the article here from Channel 2 says that a New York City-based attorney representing a driver was surprised and alarmed at what she describes a kangaroo court system with the program's cameras. Essentially, what happened was the city of Buffalo got duped by the Swedish company to put all these cameras in to keep school zones safer. It's all about safety, guys. It's all about safety. And they started issuing all these tickets and fining people. And what it came out was that there was no due process. There was no accuracy. Safeguards were not being used at any point to ensure the speed cameras are accurate. The city can't prove the speed camera recordings were accurate, and they can't provide financial evidence to support the drivers who got these tickets were even speeding. So these cameras were here finding all these people, and there was no way the system could actually determine if they were speeding. It was just a sham. And so what they did, and it's kind of basic for it's how theft works, right? If someone steals $7 from you, how much time, energy, and effort are you going to put into recouping that $7? Probably not much at $7. So what the state has realized was if we fine you $50, it's enough to generate revenue off of you, but it's not enough to really piss you off. You're mad about it, but you're not going to do too much. And if you've ever been to Buffalo and dealt with traffic tickets, it sucks. The system is set up to waste your time, political appointed people, bureaucrats, and the jobs program. They're getting paid. You're not. You have to take off of work. You have to miss part of your work. You have to miss something. You have to sacrifice time, money, and energy to fight this ticket. The city of Buffalo parking department is notorious for this as well. Essentially, we don't fine you enough to really upset you, and you just kind of write off the fraud. Like, yeah, you got me. It's just not enough for me to care about and put a lot of effort into it. And that's really what they did here with these traffic cameras, and they put them in Buffalo schools. And it was all about a subliminal and psychological marketing ploy, because if anyone questioned these speed cameras, it was, well, don't you think the children should be safer? No, it doesn't prove that there was any increase or decrease in safety in these areas. It was just essentially a Trojan horse to say, well, we're doing it to keep people safe. And It didn't, and it was a great way to generate revenue. But there was a lawsuit, and actually, these traffic cameras uh, got taken down. There was a lawsuit. These cameras were taken down, and the people won. They sued, and there's no more cameras in Buffalo. Buffalo's next response is speed bumps, which is even dumber. We can talk about that another day, but the response to this was even worse by the government, and it's kind of comical. So then, downstate also had their downstate had their issues with traffic cameras. They actually had red light Robin Hood, Stephen Ruth, who they were putting up cameras in red lights, and the same thing. Great theory, allegedly for safety, botched in execution, botched process. Essentially, what was happening was people were getting tickets for going through yellow lights. People were give me 1 second here. I'm reading this article, but this article just shared. Essentially, people were getting for running red lights. They were getting for turning right on red. So if you come to a stop at a red light, you're allowed to turn right on red. You then turn the right. You were getting a red light camera that you red light traffic ticket. You couldn't fight it because the system was set up where there was no due process. There was no recourse. There was no argument. It was, here's your fine. You're guilty. Pay it or deal with it. So this guy in Suffolk started sabotaging the cameras. He was called Red Light Robin Hood, and I think that's hysterical. It's a pretty comical story if you ever want to read about Stephen Ruth. It's quite funny. It's a great read. But yeah, there was a lot of outrage because once again it was under the guise of safety, but it was really money revenue generation. So there was no due process. There was no Fourth Amendment. There was no logic applied. It was, well, don't you care about safety? Then let us take money from you. So now here we are again in 2023, and the government, I said, police shortage is a problem. The budget deficit is a problem. New York State's facing a massive budget deficit. And if you're a politician, you really can't go out and say we need to raise taxes more. I mean, you've been raising taxes, but you can't just go out and make a massive tax increase. So you're kind of stuck. So as a politician, as a bureaucrat, as one of the jobs program people, how do you raise money to cover your government welfare paycheck? Well, also not screwing over 98% of the state. You really can't do that. You could cut spending, but that affects you, and God forbid you lose your unnecessary government job. So they said, well, how do we dupe the public into thinking we're helping them while also ripping them off? And here we come. It's construction season in April. They come up with New York State speed cam pilot programs. And what that was they started putting cameras in construction zones on the 90 in certain parts of the highway. And once again, colossal failure. I mean, you'd think that, running on this hamster wheel of trying the same thing and it failing, someone with an IQ over like 36 is in New York State Assembly or legislator. Apparently there's not. And I'll prove, you're going to say, well, that's the Democrats, both parties, because there's mass confusion over this camera. So essentially what they're doing in work zones is they're putting in Jeeps with cameras on them. And they're fighting you. And now this gets even worse because at least in some of those situations, there's someone who's an investigative agent. This is now Department of Transportation and the Thruway Authority. That's not a law enforcement body. This isn't police. Again, because the staffing problems are now exemplified because no one wants to work as a cop in New York, which is fine. Government jobs, less socialized government jobs is never a problem to me, but it is to the government. Socialists mad that socialism is declining in this sector, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. But now you have some bureaucrat at the Department of Transportation and some weenie at the Thruway Authority sitting behind a camera and essentially pumping out these bills. And an interesting thing is that an assemblyman, a state senator nearby, George Burrell, who's actually a Republican from Stucco County, he supported this program because it's our job to keep employees safe. And this is an important role that we have to play. Now, ignoring that, George Burrell must not understand that multiple Supreme Court cases have ruled that the government has no duty to keep you safe. George Burrell here is just parroting typical progressive bullshit of the government will keep you safe if you just pay more taxes, we'll solve climate change. And hey, if we just if you just pay more taxes, we'll keep throughway workers safer. And you just let us fine you arbitrarily with no reason for it. If you just fall for our bullshit, George Borrella will personally keep the throughway authority safer. Apparently, it's stupid, but apparently that's what the senators and assemblymen in New York are about. I guess that's really it. Now they roll out these traffic cameras in construction zones, which is supposed to start, and here we go again. A lot of outrage, a lot of confusion, a lot of people saying, well, what the shit? You can get a ticket if you're not driving. You can get a ticket if your vehicle's on a tow truck. We heard a story about this recently where someone's car was being towed on a tow truck and he got a speeding ticket. Once again, perfect example. The violations are $50 for the first violation, $75 for the second, $100 for the third. Which the great thing is if you really think about it, this incentivizes you to speed faster, because how the police department works is X amount of miles over a speed limit could be a felony or a misdemeanor. This, I can go 118 miles an hour through a work zone and I'm only getting a $50 ticket. So if you're fiscally intelligent, speeding faster through a work zone under this is incentivized. But I don't think the politicians who write this bill give a shit about that. They see revenue generation. They see money. They see a jobs program. And if you break it down, most Department of Transportation and Thruway Authority workers are Republicans. So this is essentially a Republican assemblyman cucking out, selling out to the Republican jobs program and using them as a ploy so that the progressives in Albany can take more of your money. This is Team Red and Team Blue in bed together to pretend a guy's safety while really screwing you over. This is another example of this. And so they expand these work zone cameras, and now they're expanding them once again into everywhere. They're not just work zones. You're going to start to see them more across the state. And people are asking, what are we going to do about it? Well, we're looking for plaintiffs. We've been in talk with some attorneys. We're going to try to stop it and fight it. And you're going to say, well, Duane, don't you care about safety? How dare you? Well, I care about safety, and I don't think you should speed in a work zone. But I don't think a response to people being idiots is to additionally tax the working class and commuters. I don't think that punishing someone for making a mistake because someone else made a mistake is a smart philosophy. I don't feel that's a benefit to society. That's really my answer is people are going to speed in work zones, yes. But fining the working class for running late and then not allowing them to argue it or challenge it, that's not a solution either. I think it's a lazy solution, and I think this is really, it's money generation with the lack of policing, with the lack of police staffing, and a lack of, funding and a massive budget deficit. New York State is desperate to essentially dupe the average person into thinking they're going to be safer while really using it as a tax to the average person. That's really what's happening. I think it's sad, but I think a lot of people are going to fall for it. You're going to see a lot of people say, well, don't you care about the worker safety? Yes, I can tell you not to speed in a work zone, but also not support, a policy, a program that's not going to be run properly. I see nothing but problems coming out of this. I see nothing but red flags. And matter of fact, a study was done recently that shows that since implementing these cameras, they can't prove that there's any benefit to the worker because worker accidents are so rare as it is that it's not, we don't know if there's an impact because the rate of incidences are already so small that you're going from small to small. It's not like there's an incident a day and now there's only an incident a year. There's very few incidences on a yearly basis as it is. So these cameras really haven't shown any proof that there's a benefit to the worker. So once again, I think people are being duped by a pretty psychopathic state government run by people who are gaslighting you into believing that it's for safety Well, really, it's for their budget and their paycheck. And it's kind of sad. I don't know. Like I said, the Libertarian Party of New York, we've been in contact with a couple attorneys, and we're interested in doing a lawsuit to stop these, or at least to see if the process is being done properly, which I'm willing to bet it's not. And that's really what it comes down to is what's next. And we're looking for plaintiffs, we're looking for lawyers, and we're looking for people willing to fight it. We don't condone speeding in a work zone. You shouldn't speed in a work zone. But that's common sense. And really, that's it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Next week, I think I'm going to interview auditing Erie County. He's First Amendment auditor. We're going to talk about direct action next week. I don't know if you guys follow along, but we're going to do something different. I'm going to start bringing people on who exemplify direct action and pushing direct action and how to do direct action, how to get involved. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great week. Keep an eye out for these cameras. If you see one, let me know. And if you get a ticket, let us know. We're always looking for plaintiffs. Keep fighting the good fight. And don't forget, government's a criminal organization run by psychopaths who take your tax dollars at gunpoint so they can get themselves richer under the guise of safety for others, which is, this is a great example of that. So thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great week. If you have any questions, let me know. Take care, guys. Thanks. Bye.